What's going on, everyone? This is Griever here, bringing you guys the latest behind the bar reviews for 7 Deadly Sins, Chapter 308, entitled Epilogue 2. Now, I'm just going to say it once again, just to reiterate again, I think the series is ending, guys. Call me crazy, but Epilogue 2 is here, and it doesn't seem like we're adding any more plot threads, does it? But this chapter so far, I thought it was good, if a little slow-paced. That's the one complaint I have, especially where we had a week break, and it's kind of like, this is what we waited for? We didn't really get any new information. Not stuff that hasn't already been assumed in the community, necessarily. A bit of a good cliffhanger at the end, but overall, I felt like this could have been handled a little better. Still a good chapter. We start off the chapter with seeing all this devastation, and I don't feel like the translation, the dialogue, fully matches the magnitude of what is happening here. All across Britannia and potentially the rest of the world, like they say to the north, like there's animals have been forced away from their homes and stuff. Meanwhile, you see like 3 tornadoes inside of a hurricane going on. I'm like, that's not really animals forced out of their home. That's literally mass natural destruction on a continent level scale. But whatever. Then we see some Land Before Time thing happening in the south with the continents when they first shifted and stuff. And once again, go check out Land Before Time if you haven't. Wonderful children's movie created by Steven Spielberg. And it's just like cracking. It's like, let's open up the gates of hell in fissure mode sort of idea. And we see blizzards and just all this stuff. And then we jump over to Leonis, and we see Bond is finally getting some, and by getting some, I mean he's going to end up in cuffs when the FBI catch up to him. I've always reiterated this, guys, even on my old channel when I was reviewing, chapter like 140 and 50 and such, and I'm reiterating it now, I've done it before on this channel as well, is not a huge fan. I don't do the lolly thing. I can't wrap my head around it. I don't care that she's supposed to be 1,000,000 years old. If she's supposed to be 1,000,000, make her look 1,000,000, I just don't care. And usually they give them a more adult form, but this form of Elaine, though with the long hair and the wings and stuff, is still not adult enough for me, not compared to Bond, I mean, it's half the reason I can't get into a lot of animes is because of art style choices, but also the lolly thing. I can't get into the lolly thing. I can't get into a very childlike, not even Disney level, but just like way too childish looking characters. It just doesn't do it for me. And unfortunately, this still is a little cringy to me. I kind of just read the dialogue and kind of skipped the rest, especially the references to the fact that like this is potentially Bond's first time as well as Elaine's. So I guess Bond was a 1,000-year-old plus virgin, an immortal virgin at that point. Okay, cool, dude, cool. It seems unlikely to me for some reason, but I mean, potential, though it seems to be a bit of banter back and forth because Elaine is very worried about she can sense what's going on basically outside. And it's left ambiguous whether that's just her, like as a fairy, and she can sense things, or if everyone knows what's going on sort of idea. And it's referenced here, like Bond explains after they have their little banter. Bond basically says, because Elaine says, does Meliodas truly have to leave this world? Is it true? Sort of idea. And Bond says, well, yeah, he chose to be the Demon King to save Elizabeth. And because of that power, because he chose to use that power, it's basically the world is trying to balance itself. This is really cool. This is a cool concept because I brought it up in my theory video about the Demon King. Is he really dead? Once again, I'm of the opinion he is. But also I brought it up in other reviews and on the Boar's Hat podcast, which once again, always go check that out. A lot of great guys there. Is that the world, it's like balance and chaos, you have these two equilibriums, and they have to match. It's a yin-yang, it's a linchpin. You can't have someone not sitting on the, and I didn't clarify before, but when I say the Demon King's throne, I know he was in purgatory. I don't mean a literal throne. I'm using that as a synonym for a metaphor for, like, his title, his position. Someone needs to fill that hole, otherwise the world becomes imbalanced. And right now, the world is trying to balance itself out. Nature itself, the earth itself, is an alive thing that is, this power is too immense for the world, and it's going to crack. Like, it's too strong for even the makeup of this world, the fabric that holds this world together, isn't strong enough to contain his presence. And I just think it's incredible. It makes so much sense. We brought this up. I know it wasn't just me. There were other reviewers who said the same thing. This is the probable reason as to why Meliodas has to leave. That's been a theory running for a long time about why would he have to leave. Now, once again, I'm in the opinion that the Demon King himself, had he won the battle and, had defeated the sins and everything, he would have also had to leave. Maybe not had to, he probably would have gladly destroyed everything, but the world itself would still have broken apart. It's the presence of the Demon King. The Demon King, and probably by nature the Supreme Deity, cannot exist in the mortal world. It's not a place for gods. It just doesn't work that way, and the world is trying to balance itself out, but it can't, and so it's breaking apart. It's creating chaos by trying to bring balance. It's a cool concept. I really, really enjoy this. And I know I'm reading a little too much into it, maybe more than some people, but I really, really enjoyed this part of the chapter. It's probably my favorite part. Now everyone starts getting, Elaine starts crying. She starts getting very sad. Bonnie even says, it was his choice. He did it to save Elizabeth. He did it to save the princess. And he knew what it would cost him. So even if I could do something about it, I won't, because he's always been there for me, no matter what stupid decision I made, no matter what, I even turned on him once before and all this stuff. He has stuck through me. He's my best friend. He has stuck through me. And this was a good Nakama speech without being a Nakama, fairy tale-esque speech. This speech felt good. This felt like an honest friend who's been through thick and thin with his friend, like his buddy, and is just basically sitting back and, he's had my back this whole time. He made the choice. He knew what it would cost him. He knew what was going to happen. I can't look him in the eye and tell him that I don't agree, that I can't support him in his decision, and that's a very friend thing to do. That is a true friend thing. So good writing there. I really like that part of the scene. And it's also brought up that he's not going to tell anybody, at least not yet. It's implied never, but he's not going to tell anybody sort of about what's going to happen. And then, so Elaine's still upset and she's thinking about Elizabeth, she's got to part with the one she loves. And then we get a very, very odd image of Elizabeth staring out the window with a huge smile on her face, basically in the middle of the night, seemingly watching the destruction that's happening outside of Leonis, and she's happy. So clearly they have a plan. Either she's resigned herself to reincarnation again or something, like a real reincarnation this time, and they will meet again one day, sort of a Prince of Persia Sands of Time thing or something like that, that they will eventually one day get back to each other. If not in this lifetime, it might take another 3,000 years, but they won't be cursed with this cycle anymore. When they do find each other again, it'll be for real and they can do it properly. They'll finally have their happy ending. But that's just one theory. I'm very curious, and especially the end part of the chapter. This is a kind of a good cliffhanger, but leaving me wanting more. I am very curious as to what, has Elizabeth resolved herself to her fate, and she's just okay with it after all this time? I mean, it's been a long time, but after all this time, is she finally nothing's changed. We're still going to be apart, but you know what? We did it together. That doesn't seem like the case. Something's going on. Something's going up the sleeve. A lot of people are saying that she's going to leave with Meliodas to the demon realm. That's a total possibility. There's no implication as to why a goddess could not live in the demon realm. As far as I'm aware, I don't remember any text or any panel showcasing that, so that's another potential. But it's very odd to see her smiling here at all the chaos going on in the world, but it's kind of strange. But either way, after this, Bon and Elaine end up, it becomes morning and whatever, and they end up going towards the Boar's Hat, and people are saying, you're late, you're late, you're late, and so they're meeting up with the whole crew. The Sins are all coming back together to enjoy a chapter together sort of idea, and the whole purpose is to restock the Boar's Hat with food and drink and the like. So the rest of this chapter is just a bit of fluff. Now, part of this fluff does feel a little waste of pages, where we have so much else we want to know. Zeldris and Arthur, anybody? What's going on? Merlin's pretty chill for someone whose entire reason for living, it seems, is still coma, stabbed with his own sword through the chest. And Meliodas seems pretty chill for his brother that he felt so bad about betraying and all that stuff. Literally, cutting, and I guess the sinner was burnt to a crisp? I mean, there's so many questions. I mean, don't get me wrong. Chapters like this are some of the best chapters in a shonen manga series when you have a cast of lovable characters. It's why One Piece filler is probably some of the best filler, because we just want more adventures with all the Straw Hats together, screwing around on the Sunny. We want to see them just partying away. Like at the very first chapter of One Piece, we're seeing the red hair pirates just partying on, carrying on. Chapters like that are golden. They're great, and they're not exactly a dime a dozen. They're usually, some diamonds found in a lot of rough. And with a manga series, usually you have to keep the plot going. You can't waste too much time. So this, to me, is bittersweet, because I feel like we didn't really need this, like for the majority, and we could be finding out what's happening to other people. I'd like to just see Zelda's recovering in a bed somewhere, or maybe Merlin working over Arthur or something, or just someone mentioning, like, how's it going with Arthur? He said, well, still pretty much the same, but I'm hopeful, or something. Like, even a line of dialogue just to acknowledge these major characters, fan favorites for a lot of people. And a lot of people are even saying there's going to be a second series about Arthur. I don't see that happening if you don't acknowledge the dude's existence anymore. So I enjoyed the fluff, but I felt it a waste because of the where the chapter sits. How much stuff we want to know and how much has been left unanswered and unsaid. Spending time like this is not the right place for it. I just, that's the way I feel. Now, it was still enjoyable to see them all screwing around, all hunting together. Bond making fun of King, like not even registering who he is, sort of idea, call back to when he first didn't recognize the young little form King, because you only remember King as the big fat fairy, right? An acknowledgement here of that, and King saying, "Oh, don't screw around with me," sort of idea. We get King is also, when he's using Guardian to go hunting and such, he's using him to. He's thinking about ways of, like, basically a poetry way. He should be asking Escanor for tips. That would have been really cool. He's sitting there like, "Oh, dear princess of the giants, may we combine our two races." He's basically trying to find a good way to, engage, like get an engagement, propose to her. And I'm sitting there like, okay, that's fine. They all go, they look for more tableware. They go back to Vanya, they look for some Vanya ale. Now, that's my translation from the English dub. Can't get that out of my head, so if it's wrong or right, whatever. Gil Thunder's there helping, and Mead is still around. And I didn't mind that. See, once again, parts of the fluff I really enjoyed. And they even mentioned, like, when's the wedding, you two? We're seeing a lot of PDA going on in there. I was kind of like, there must have been a better way to say that line. I hate abbreviations. I hate when people talk in text talk, when they use abbreviations, when they say BRB, LOL, PDA. I'm not a fan, so I feel like there must have been a better way to say that. Like, you're being all touchy-feely even would have been a better way of translating it, but that's just me. And we see Mead, and they're talking about being married and stuff, and Elizabeth and Melios are having fun with them, like snotty brat sort of idea, and Elizabeth says, well, it might be, Elizabeth is so confident now because she's in love with Melios. She doesn't have to be shy. She has the memories of her original self and stuff, and they were together like this. She's not embarrassed by all this. She doesn't go red-faced, and this is the key difference between Princess of Leonis and Goddess Elizabeth, is that they're merged, but certain traits that were never there before are now here. Certain levels of confidence, experience, etc. It's still nice to see. It's still Elizabeth, but it's definitely noticeable in that way. Now, so yeah, they go to Vanya, they get the ale, they look for silverware, tableware, that kind of stuff. They go hunting. Bond's looking for, stock, and he's catching stuff. He's catching, like, giant owls and sharks and stuff, and it's like, okay, whatever. And then we see them all kind of lined up, and they're doing basically a group piss, I guess. I mean, why did y'all feel the need to go at once? That just kind of feels out of place. It would make sense if we've seen that before, I guess, but you really all had to go at the same time in the exact same bush? Like, all I can be reminded of is Harold and Kumar, when, Kumar's going in the bushes and he, starts to take a leak on the side of the road, and then friggin' some crazy guy in a suit walks up and goes, is this your special bush or something? And he's clearly mental or high as a kite or something. And he's just like, you know what, forget it, And he goes away. It felt out of place. It felt really strange. I don't know why they did this. Was it for the comedic effect? I It's not for me, I guess. I guess it's not. I just didn't see. Couldn't we have had this conversation while they were like skinning the meat or something, or like still hunting, maybe sitting around a fire, walking back to the campsite and the girls with the kills over their shoulders? Did it really have to be this? I don't know. I'm not really too bothered by it. It just seems odd. Like, why? I guess. Anyways, this is where Bond basically tells them, says, Captain, these guys aren't as dense as you might think. Sort of idea. They're sort of idea because Escanor and Gotha and everyone is realizing what's happening here. They all know it. So why Meliodas doesn't want to bring it up, why he doesn't want to talk about it, that he's going to disappear from this world. And it's very curious as to how exactly that's going to go about, but we'll talk about that at the end of the review. Pretty much everyone's just kind of like Escanor says, it's all good. We'll still be able to be the 7 deadly sins, won't we? We don't have to leave each other, do we? Because they're going to all sense it, and Bond's trying to convince Meliodas to talk. And then we cut away, though. Of course we cut away when we might have had a great moment, but I'm sure we'll get that moment. Cut back away to the girls. We see Merlin and Elaine and Deanne and Elizabeth, and they're all talking, like, at first I was like, okay, the marriage thing and stuff, but once again, the pacing is like, we're doing slow fluff, but then we're moving really fast. Deanne is talking about, will all our kids grow up and play together? It's like, whoa, all this stuff, sort of idea. And it's like, Elizabeth, if you and Captain had kids, it'd be so cute and blah, 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 and just talking all about the kids playing together and growing up and stuff. And I understand. I've had this type of conversation with my own friends. But I don't know, for some reason it feels like we're throwing in a big chunk of slice of life into our shonen just to wrap it all up. It's not like they might do this, but that whole like cringeworthy 10 years later chapter you get at the end of shonens. Bleach is an example of that. Naruto is an example of that. It's like they all have kids all of a sudden and they're all married and everybody's happy, and it's like, yeah, except they're doing it here, except they're just talking about it rather than showing a 10 years later chapter. And I'm sitting there like, okay, like it's still the same thing. It's just they're talking about it instead. I don't know. Just adding all these elements felt a little out of place to me. Though the last part where Deanne starts breaking down, because even Deanne realizes that something's going on, and she's, we all knew Merlin knew. And we knew Elaine knew from the beginning of the chapter, and clearly Elizabeth is very aware. But Deanne was probably the last one left out because we already seen all the guys talk. And she breaks down and basically says, the captain's not going anywhere, right? And she's crying and she's weeping and stuff. And Merlin, I don't get this line. This could be a translation, but Merlin basically says to Elizabeth, there's something about the captain I have to tell you. Are you telling me that everyone assumed Elizabeth did not know? Like, she's a goddess. She's older than all of you. She literally has 3,000 years of knowledge. She's older than Merlin. She's as old as probably Meliodas. She's literally the oldest out of this entire group. So, barring possibly Meliodas, they might be the same age, Meliodas might be older, I don't know. And I'm sitting there like, telling me that Merlin thought Elizabeth didn't know? That just felt weird to me for some reason. Like, this entire time, I assumed that they all knew that at the very least, Merlin knew. But at the very least, Elizabeth knew the consequences. That's why she was against this whole thing in the first place. When Chandler first showed up, she knew what was going to happen. It was not a solution, as far as they were concerned. But now, last page of the chapter, yes, I know, Meliodas is going to eventually, soon, disappear from this world. But it's okay. Shock, 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 shock. End of chapter. Chapter 309 being Epilogue 3. So once again, I can clearly state that I believe the series ending is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. Now, that's the end of the review and the end of the chapter and all that good stuff. Just want to bring up a couple quick things. Why is Elizabeth happy? Does she have a solution? I already brought up some of those in the review, like has she just resigned herself? And that, I think, would be terrible. Has she just resigned herself to that fate? Is there some reincarnation thing going to eventually go on? As I said, like a true one, like it might be 500 years from now, it might be 1,000 years. It might be Meliodas might come back as a fairy, and she might come back as a human. But they will get back together eventually. Something will happen. You know what I mean? Something like that. Okay. That's a potential. Maybe she knows about it. There's also the potential that she just goes with him to the demon realm. And he lords over as the linchpin to keep the other side of the world together. Once again, this is a reason, this brings up a good reason as to why the Supreme Deity does not involve herself. Even as far as right now, I suppose, because the world can't take it, and I don't believe they really wanted the destruction. I mean, maybe they did. It's left so vague. What was even the Supreme Deity's goal? And what was the Demon King's goal? A lot of people are going to tell me that it was to erase each other's clans, but they were working together. Like, clearly. Like at least once. What's the point? You know, I just don't understand it. Clearly, the Holy War and the whole Ten Commandment thing was an entire ruse for the Demon King. In Gother, Wheelchair Gother fixed the whole Holy War. Too much sidetrack, too many tangents. I've got a lot of questions still left, and that's what I'm saying. This chapter, while a good chapter, is disappointing in the fact that there are so many unanswered questions, so many things left vague and unclear, so many things blatantly just not brought up or talked about. And this chapter doesn't feel like it's answering anything. It's just leaving us with more. The only thing after this chapter I have to ask is, I have no questions answered. I just have to ask, why is Elizabeth happy if she knows Meliodas' fate? And another question is, how is Meliodas going to disappear? Is the world itself going to force him? Is the nature, the power, the magic still left in the earth going to literally transport him away unless he leaves? Can he physically leave on his own? How do they get to the demon realm? There are so many questions and still nothing answered, such as Arthur, Zeldris, and every other vague thing about all these powers and everything. So, good chapter, felt a little misplaced, felt like more crucial information can be brought in, hopefully, Epilogue 3, and we get at least some answers rather than more questions, because we are really coming up to the end of the series. And I feel like we deserve that. And it was even more of a bit of a hit to the gut to see the fact that in the sidebar, Nakaba is always usually very good at answering one question per chapter. And this one was a stupid one about some hentai guy who cared about Elaine wearing underwear or not. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's great. Go search your cartoon porn some other time, like I'm not judging. I'm saying I don't care about that when there are people like Zeldris and Arthur and what was the deal with Mama Hawk this whole time? Is where's the Supreme Deity? Is there somebody in between? Is the sinner burnt to a crisp? Was that his end? There are much more story relevant, plot relevant, and crucial things to talk about. Escanor's backstory, for God's sakes. There are just so many other things to talk about that is a waste of a question. That's a waste of my time. And I'm just sitting there like, there's too many unanswered things for us to be worrying about stuff like that. So hopefully Epilogue 3 is a more informative chapter. Once again, it sounds like I'm bragging on this chapter hard, and I realize I kind of am, but it's only because it's not giving us new. It's just bringing up new questions and not answering any old. It's not moving anything forward. And though a fluff chapter is great, and though this chapter was good, it's leaving more questions. And we're coming to the end. I need those answers. So, as I said, that's my tangent, ladies and gentlemen. I am done. What did you guys think of the chapter? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Please like, subscribe, comment. As always, it's always very much appreciated. This has been Griever with your 7 Deadly Sins, chapter 308 review. And I know it was a bit of a lengthy one, a few tangents, but thanks for sticking with me. Drink responsibly as always. See you back here next time.